Hi guys, hey, welcome back to another video on the channel. It's been a while, hasn't it? Okay, and today we're going to be looking at something inside Darktable, and we're going to be looking at a couple of raw files, both of them macro dragonflies, and we're going to be concentrating on doing a start to finish process in just one module, and that module is Colour Balance RGB. Yes, the best utilitarian module inside Darktable, if you ask me, ranking just above the new colour equalizer, which I did a video on last time, which has got me, Jesus, how long ago is it? 2 months? Yeah, right. Not that I've been bone idle, I've been doing loads of videos, but they've all been for me Patreon members. So here we go. Right, so what we're going to be doing is this image and this image here, and the processing is really simple. Just like I said, it's one module. But it basically stems from a conversation I was having with a couple of my Patreon members the other day about saturation masking. Now, for those of you who are not into Adobe software for whatever reason, you might not be familiar with a saturation mask. Those of you who are on Affinity, you can do saturation masking on Affinity just the same as you can actually do it inside Photoshop. It's pretty much identical. I don't know what else you can do it on. I know you can do it on Capture One, but as for the other bits of software that people use, I really and truly I don't know. But what I'm going to do is, if you forgive me, yeah, I'm just temporarily going to switch over to Photoshop for the benefit of those of you who do not know what a saturation mask is. And so I'm going to slip over into Photoshop, and we've got this colour chart here, which is basically a Granger chart, and I've stuck a white to black graduated box on the end of it so you can sort of see what's going on. Now, I don't know if video compression on YouTube will allow you to see this, but you can see this sort of spiked zigzag pattern here, and this is where the primary and secondary colours which are present in this image are at their maximum saturation. Now, that's all well and good, and that's pretty easy for you to comprehend. But the only thing is, you'll notice the top of the image is white and the bottom of the image is black. Now, there's a thing about black and white. He is black, he is white, and we've got pretty much every shade of grey in between. Now, anything which is neutral, which is white, black, and all your pure greys, have zero saturation. So if we want to make a saturation mask, we need to see no saturation in the blacks, no saturation in the whites, no saturation in the neutrals. Okay, so in Photoshop we do it a particular way, and I'm not going to bore you with showing you how to make one, but I've just got an action here, and I'm just going to play the action and come over to channels, and there is the saturation mask. Okay, so you can think of this map this mask is a map of the saturation values and saturation ratios in the underlying image. Okay, now that's the key takeaway. All right. Now, why would we want to use one? It's really simple. I'll just go and play the action again on this image, and now you're going to see the saturation, a correct saturation map or saturation mask for a real image. And there you go. Yeah, it's a bit bleak, isn't it? Right. But you see, the thing is, masks make your adjustments a lot easier. Just watch this. And bear with me because we're still in Photoshop, and I'm just going to go select and load selection. I'm going to load this saturation alpha channel as a selection. Warning, no more than 50% pixels selected, yada yada yada. I'm going to go back to layers, and I'm just going to add a hue saturation layer, and watch this. Bump. Look at me sky on the skyline has got more saturated. My clouds have got more moody and dramatic because they've taken on this blue hue, which was actually already there but has now been amplified. And look at all the lovely colours in these rocks now. All these colours, they're not false, they're all in the rocks by default. And if you want to go to Porthy Post on Anglesey, when the tide's gone out, you can find this little clump of rock, and you will see that I am not lying to you. These are the colours of the rocks, and the little orange limpets stuck to them all over the joint. Okay, so for those of you who hate Adobe, yeah, we're now going to come out of Adobe. And the thing is that we can't actually get a handle on saturation very easily inside a Darktable. Not that I've managed to find at any rate. But what I'm going to do is, you've seen what these images look like as a final process. And so we're going to come back to the light table, and we're going to select one, we're going to shift click, and we're going to go discard history, and we'll go discard history, and then this one we are just going to rotate through 90 degrees. And what are we going to do? Let's start on this brown hawker dragonfly, shall we? So there is our starting image. Now, why would we want to mask based on saturation? I'll tell you now, a lot of pros, including myself, use saturation masking for all sorts of things, because if we use luminosity masking, in inverted commas, you can have a tendency to overcook your colours if you're not careful, and really super saturate your colours, because the map contains no reference to the saturation values of the colours that are already there. So you've sort of got to eyeball it, and so you find saturation masks come in really handy. I'm pretty certain you must be able to make them in GIMP, though don't ask me how to start, because no. So anyway, how can we approximate a saturation map or mask inside of Darktable? Right, so I've got the Colour Balance RGB module open, and that's pretty much the only module we're going to open to get the process of this image going. And so I'm going to come to parametric masking, and I'm just going to scroll down so I can see what I'm doing. Now then, whether it's a fault on my build or not, By default, it's the Colour Balance RGB comes up in a mode of display. Display referred. Personally, it doesn't bother me. If the image looks right, then it is right. So, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift it out into this vaunted RGB scene referred. So you could see beforehand, if we go back to display, it's basically an HSL adjustment. Yeah, hue, saturation, and luminance. Okay, it's quite simple and straightforward. Right, so I'm going to switch back to RGB scene. You don't have to, not at all, because the operations are going to be the same, but maybe not. They'll be a little bit different, but I'll go through that in a minute. So what I want to do is I want to find the channel which deals with saturation. So the nearest thing we could deal with in scene referred is chroma. Yeah. Now there is a difference between chroma and saturation, and it's a very obtuse difference, and I'm not going to rant on about it. But we will come to the CZ channel, okay? And I'm going to turn on the mask visualization. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave the sort of cornerstone part of the slider exactly where it is. These are the undersaturated and unsaturated, or this is the unsaturated end. This is the highly saturated end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a gradual ramp from 0 saturation to round about sort of 0.54, 0.55, something like that. I might even take that up to 0.6. Okay. So if you think about it, what have we got? We've got dark shadows here. We've got middle exposures here. We've got very bright exposures here, bright exposures here. And remember, a proper saturation mask in the likes of Photoshop, where the image is black, the mask is black. Where the image is white, the mask is black. The only white areas or grey areas in the mask are those that have got a saturation value, and the higher the saturation value, the lighter they will be in the mask. So don't forget, white in an ordinary mask is equivalent to yellow in the likes of Darktable and Raw Therapy, come to that. And I do wish they'd bloody change it, but well, there you go, because it confuses the hell out of people who are just getting started on masking. So we need to see no yellow in the darkest areas and no yellow in the very brightest areas. So let's go and turn that mask visualization back on. So you can see I can still see yellow in very bright highlights, which I know I've got a couple here, and I can still see quite a lot of yellow up there. And this area is very bright as well. We could try and push that a little bit further over to the right. We could try and remove certain brighter areas which would be undersaturated or unsaturated by moving this sort of bottom cornerstone slider, but it all sort of gets a bit pants if you're not careful. So what I actually have a tendency to do inside a Darktable when I feel I need to do this is I actually switch it back into RGB display referred, yeah, because it enables me to get hold of saturation, which is actually what we're after. And if I get the top slider, and you can now see that I am actually removing both dark and light areas from the mask at the same time. Yeah, and this is the kicker. You struggle to do that when you're in scene referred and you're working on the CZ channel. If you work on the saturation channel in display referred, yeah, you can remove both light and dark areas quite effectively. So we'll take that up to 50 odd, and what we'll do is we'll just move the bottom slider away just a little bit, and then what I'm going to do is come to L, yeah, which is luminosity, and I'm just going to take away some of the darks and then feed them back on that bottom slider. So can you see we've got a little ramp going there, and just to tidy up the light areas, we'll just do the same thing again. Okay, so there is an approximated version of a saturation mask inside of Darktable when you're working on a bloody raw file. This is the kicker, this is the real bonus. You're working on a raw file, not a rasterized image like a TIFF. Okay, now when it comes to the details threshold, I have a tendency to turn it down a little bit, just a smidge, not much, because you don't want any real texture to this mask at all. It wants to be a little bit on the soft side. So if we just knock a little bit out of the details threshold, and we add a little bit of feathering and a little bit of blurring, and let's see how we get on with this mask now. So we will turn off mask visualization, and this is why this RGB module here, the Colour Balance RGB module, is so valuable, because you can do pretty much everything in this one module. So from behind this pseudo saturation mask, I am going to just bump up global brilliance. Okay, now you can see I'm starting, because I've got my clipping indicators turned on, I'm just starting to get a little bit hot in there. So of course, what can I do? I can come down here and just turn down the perceptual brilliance grading in the highlights. Yeah, I love this, I do. Right, and I might go and turn up global vibrance just a smidge, and I might turn up the saturation grading in the midtones and the chroma grading in the midtones. Let's go and put some brightness now, or brilliance, yeah, into the midtones. Yeah, and look how I can push this image now. How cool is that? We can even throw a little bit into the shadows. So where have we got to? We've gone from there to there. Alrighty. So let's go and have a look at the image and go and finish it off. And what am I going to do? Because I've got this mask now on this Colour Balance RGB, what I'm actually going to do is, first off, add a little bit of local contrast. So I'm going to go and activate local contrast. Okay, now that looks really punchy, but I'm going to go to raster mask and I'm going to pick up that self-same Colour Balance RGB parametric that we've just deployed on the Colour Balance RGB module. I'm now going to come to Sharpen, and I'm going to activate the sharpening module, but I'm going to use my low radius high amount preset, and there we go for that. And I might just, you can see, because now we've just got a few little blue speckles in there. So I'm going to come to a parametric mask. I'm just going to go to the luminance channel, and I'm just going to pull it off the darks like that. And so there we go. Job pretty much sorted. I can see one little speck there on the yellows, so we will come back to Colour Balance RGB, and I might just take the easy way out and just drop the highlights perceptual grading just that little bit more, and there we go. And so if I take a snapshot and then I come back to orientation, then click on there, and there's our before, there's our after. Before, after. Let's bring it up to 100%. Okay, there we go. And so there's our before, there's our after. How's that for cool? I mean, I love it. I love it because I've used saturation masks in Photoshop for so goddamn long. So you can't do them in Lightroom, you can't do them in Adobe Camera Raw. Right, you can attempt to with some of this local masking that you've got in Lightroom now, but no, just forget about it, throw it into Photoshop, yeah? But it's just so nice to be able to bring a sort of variant, in air quotes, over to Darktable, and yeah, I'm quite pleased with it. I don't know about you. You really do need to go and give it a bit of a try. So I'll delete that, I'll come back to that. There we go, that's that one finished, and I'll go and race through this other one. And so we are back at Colour Balance RGB. Turn the Colour Balance RGB module on, and let's come to parametric masking again. Slide down a little bit, and this one illustrates this scene referred CZ weakness, I'm going to call it, a lot better. And your procedure will always be the same, but it won't be the same numbers. So you just gotta watch yourself and get used to making them, and how you need to modify them from image to image to image. But the basic fundamental procedure is still the same. So if I was to try and take out, you see, I'm taking the darks out, but I'm not taking there's two bloody dirty great big highlights on this flag iris seed pod here, and we struggle to actually remove them. If we go over into the 60s and 70s, you can see I'm still not removing them, and I just seriously don't know why this is. See, if I move the left base slider, I'm still not removing the very brightest areas. So I can either come over to the JZ panel and remove very light areas, a bit like that, but then you really do have to dial into them quite severely. And you know, I mean, we come back to CZ and pull this back a little bit, so we're picking up more colour, and there we go, a little bit like that. And then we do really need to add a little bit of feathering and a little bit of radius, blur radius to that. But again, it's not something I actually favour very much. at all. So we'll just go and reset everything so you know it's all kosher. We'll come back to parametric masking again. And where are we? I'm going to just leave it in the default of HSL. And we'll go to saturation. We'll turn on the mask visualization. Let's get that up to there, and you can see I'm taking out the darker areas and I'm taking out the very lighter areas at the same time. And what I just don't understand what goes on here. Now we can move that slider that way as well, so we've got a bit of a ramp of selection of the undersaturated colours. We've removed all the unsaturated, so all the greys and the blacks, they are done. Yeah, so it's just a question of how much more colour we want to include or remove from the actual scene and from the mask itself. I'm probably going to stick with something like that. And don't worry if you see this checkerboard effect in your out of focus backgrounds. This is just an extreme extraction of the sort of grid pattern in your centre, and it honestly, it won't show in your images at all. But of course, if we add a little bit of feathering, add a little bit of blurring, the majority of that will go away. We might just pull that in a little bit more like that, and then we might come to the luminance channel and just pull out the blacks rather like that. Okay, and just to make sure, just pull out the lights as well, the extreme lights. We've got a bit of feathering, we've got a bit of blurring. Let's turn the visualization off. Let's turn up our midtones for brilliance. Let's turn up our shadows for brilliance. Let's do a global perceptual brilliance lift there as well. We're just getting a bit hot there, so all we'll do is just turn down the highlights brilliance. That's a lot better than actually going in and doing a mixed parametric and brush mask and brushing that away, because if you're not careful, your brush will take too much away and you'll end up with a bit of a greyish looking blob. So you just got to be a bit careful. Okay, so we're done there. I'm not liking these highlights very much, but you have to remember that you don't want to attract too much attention to these highlights because they are massively out of focus. Never attract attention to anything in your image which is massively out of focus. So it always that sort of stuff always needs to be kept subdued. But let's crack on a little bit more, and so we will come up. We might add a little touch of global vibrance. We might put a bit of mid-tone chroma grading in, a bit of mid-tone saturation grading in, and there we go. Now then, there's a couple of things you can do here. First of all, let's come into the image at 100% and let's just try increasing the feather radius. Yeah, you see that that's changed the nature of these highlights and has made them quite a bit more acceptable. Well, to me it has anyway. And the image overall just still looks fine. The only bit of this shot that's sharp is the actual front of the face. Is part of the focus stack. But there you go. I mean, that's not looking too bad. and we'll just leave it all alone for a minute. We'll go and put my sharpening back on, my low radius, high amount. See, radius of 1, amount 2, threshold 0. And when your exposure is good and your ISO is good, and so you're not underexposing, the noise in the image is always going to be acceptable, and you're not going to be pushing anything or amplifying anything too much. The only thing I'm going to do with this is just lose a bit of the coolness in this image, quite simply by coming to where are we coming to? We are going to come to white balance, and you can see I don't bother with this fancy malarkey and the automatic colour balancing, and no. Mine's just set to bloody as shot camera, and then I will just come in and I might just add a couple of points of warmth to the image. Now you can see that's making these pixels here go a little bit hot. So what we'll do is we'll come back to Colour Balance RGB, and we will just tug down on those highlights, that highlight slider just a little bit more, and there we go, we're all gone. So there it is, all processed and sharpened, and it's all looking all right, I suppose. What else could we do down here just to make this look a little bit less glaringly obvious? I think we need to make some more changes to that Colour Balance RGB mask. So what we will do is just come down here and maybe increase that blur radius again, take down that feathering radius, increase the blur, decrease the feather, increase the blur again. Do we need to drop the mask opacity? Yeah, I think that'll do. Yeah, rather like that. That looks a little bit better. And so there you go. I mean, it's not perfect, not by any stretch of the imagination, and we could go on and do further adjustments to the image. Let's see, what could we do just to try and alleviate this little problem down here. I know what we can do. We can come and get the colour equalizer, yeah, and we can go and get our old eyedropper tool, and we can just click in there, and we will just move the nodes over rather like that, and I might shift the hue just a little bit warmer and greener, I think, and I might just lift the brightness up a little bit. Yeah, that's looking a little bit better, but I only want to see it here, so all I'm going to do is do a drawn mask, and we will hold down Control click and lift up the size of the brush. Okay, a little bit like that, and I will just paint down there. Yeah, I'll just paint off the base of the image, and let's go and have a look and see what that's done. Yeah, there we go, that's a little bit better. That's a little bit better, rather like that. So we will just click there to take that off, and there's our image finished. So there you go, guys. Let me know what you think below. I mean, it's not a proper saturation mask, and if somebody knows how we can make a saturation mask more properly inside of Darktable, then let me know, Todd. Yeah. So anyway, guys, there you go. Hope you've enjoyed that. Hope you've got something useful out of it. Give it a try on your own images, and let me know how you get on. So until the next time, stay safe, stay well, keep taking the pictures, and I'll speak to you very soon. See ya!